The silence of deep space enveloped the Pluto outpost, a solitary sentinel at the edge of human territory. Inside the dimly lit command center, the air hummed with the gentle whir of life support systems and the occasional beep of monitoring equipment. Captain Lawrence Cruz stood before the main viewport, his weathered face reflected in the reinforced glass as he gazed out at the distant stars. Suddenly, a frantic voice shattered the tranquility. "Captain!" Urgent transmission coming through on an unknown frequency. Lieutenant Zoe Davis's fingers flew across her console, her eyes wide with shock. Cruz spun around, his boots echoing on the metal floor as he strode to the communications station. "Put it through, Davis. Full audio and visual." The main screen flickered to life, revealing a scene of chaos. Smoke billowed in the background as a reptilian alien, its scales shimmering with an iridescent sheen, leaned close to the camera. Its eyes, vertical slits of amber, were wide with terror. "This is Commander Durnak of the Galactic Council refugee ship Starlight Wanderer." The alien's voice crackled through the speakers, the universal translator struggling to keep up with the rapid-fire speech. "We are under attack by sovereignty forces. Our shields are failing, and we have civilians on board. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need immediate assistance." The feed cut out abruptly, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Cruz's jaw clenched, his mind racing through protocols and regulations. Earth's stance on galactic affairs had been clear: non-interference. But the desperation in Commander Durnak's eyes gnawed at him. "Sir," Davis's voice was barely above a whisper, "what are your orders?" Cruz took a deep breath, his decision crystallizing. "Prepare the horizon for immediate launch. Alert medical to ready for potential casualties." "Captain," First Officer Damon Gayassi stepped forward, his face a mask of concern. "This goes against every directive we've been given. We could be court-martialed for this." "I'm well aware of the consequences, Damon," Cruz replied, his voice steady. "But I didn't join Starfleet to sit on the sidelines while innocents die. If we don't act now, we're no better than the sovereignty." The command center erupted into a flurry of activity. Cruz barked orders as crew members rushed to their stations. Within minutes, the sleek form of the UES Horizon, Earth's most advanced stealth cruiser, hummed to life in its docking bay. As Cruz strapped himself into the captain's chair on the Horizon's bridge, he opened a secure channel to Earth. "This is Captain Lawrence Cruz of the Pluto outpost. I need to speak with Chancellor Terrence Duke immediately. Priority Alpha." The minutes ticked by, agonizingly slow as they waited for a response. Finally, the stern face of Chancellor Duke appeared on the main view screen. "Captain Cruz, this had better be important. Do you have any idea what time it is here?" Cruz leaned forward, his voice urgent. "Chancellor, we've intercepted a distress call from a Galactic Council refugee ship. They're under attack by sovereignty forces, and they have civilians on board. I'm requesting permission to intervene." Duke's eyes widened, then narrowed. "Absolutely not, Captain. Our policy of non-interference is clear. We cannot risk—" "With all due respect, Chancellor," Cruz interrupted, his tone firm. "If we stand by and do nothing, we're complicit in the slaughter of innocent civilians. This isn't about politics, it's about doing what's right." The Chancellor's face hardened. "Captain, I'm ordering you to stand down. The political ramifications of—" "Sir," Cruz cut in again, his resolve unwavering. "I understand the risks, but I also understand that sometimes we have to take a stand. If we don't act now, we'll be sending a message to the entire galaxy that humanity is willing to turn a blind eye to atrocities. Is that really the legacy we want to leave?" A tense silence fell over the bridge. Duke's expression was unreadable as he considered Cruz's words. Finally, he spoke, his voice heavy. "You realize what you're risking, don't you, Lawrence? Not just your career, but potentially the safety of Earth itself?" Cruz nodded solemnly. "I do, sir. But I believe this is a risk we must take. The galaxy needs to know that humanity stands for something greater than self-preservation." After what felt like an eternity, Duke sighed. "Very well, Captain. You have my unofficial blessing. Hey there, hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you do, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps the channel to grow and reach more people. Now let's find out what comes next. But understand this. If things go south, I'll have no choice but to disavow any knowledge of your actions. You'll be on your own out there. Understood, sir. Thank you. Cruz cut the transmission, turning to his crew. All right, people. We're going in hot. Helm, set course for the Starlight Wanderer's last known coordinates. Maximum warp. As the horizon streaked through space, Cruz couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to change the course of human history. Little did he know just how right he was. The horizon dropped out of warp in a maelstrom of chaos. The Starlight Wanderer, a massive vessel easily 10 times the size of the human cruiser, limped through space, its hull scorched and breached in multiple locations. Surrounding it, a swarm of sleek, predatory ships bore down relentlessly, their weapons leaving trails of destruction in their wake. My God, Gyasi breathed, his eyes wide as he took in the scene before them. Cruz's voice cut through the stunned silence on the bridge. Tactical, analyze those ships. I want to know what we're up against. Lieutenant Commander Mira Turunen's fingers danced across her console. Sir, I'm reading 15 sovereignty vessels, mostly light cruisers. But there's one heavy battleship coordinating the attack. Their technology, it's unlike anything I've ever seen. Life signs on the Wanderer? Cruz asked, his eyes never leaving the main view screen. Faint, but they're there, Davis reported. I'm detecting over 1,000 signatures, sir. Many of them are critically weak. Cruz nodded grimly. Hail the Sovereignty fleet. The view screen flickered, revealing the bridge of the Sovereignty battleship. A humanoid figure stood at its center, its skin a pale blue, with intricate patterns swirling across its surface. 4 obsidian eyes regarded Cruz with cold disdain. This is Captain Lawrence Cruz of the United Earthship Horizon, Cruz announced, his voice steady and authoritative. You are attacking a civilian vessel. Stand down immediately, or we will be forced to intervene. The alien's lipless mouth curved into what might have been a smile. When it spoke, its voice was like ice scraping against metal. How quaint. The primitives have decided to play at galactic politics. Its eyes narrowed. This does not concern you, human. Leave now, and we may spare your pitiful vessel. Cruz's jaw clenched. I'm afraid I can't do that. Those are innocent lives you're threatening, and we won't stand idly by while you slaughter them. The alien's expression hardened. Then you will share their fate. The transmission cut off abruptly. Sir, Turunen called out. They're powering up weapons. Cruz's mind raced, analyzing their options in a split second. Evasive maneuvers, target their weapon systems and fire at will. Davis, get me a channel to the Wanderer. The horizon dove and weaved through space, its advanced stealth systems making it difficult for the sovereignty ships to get a lock. Beams of energy crisscrossed the void, some glancing off the horizon's shields, others finding their mark on the attacking vessels. As the battle raged, Commander Durnak's face appeared on a secondary screen. Unknown vessel. Wait, you're human? The alien's eyes widened in surprise. Commander Durnak, I'm Captain Cruz. We received your distress call. What's your status? Durnak's relief was palpable. Captain, our shields are almost gone, and we have multiple hull breaches. We've got wounded everywhere, and our life support is failing. We won't last much longer. Understood. We're going to clear you a path. Be ready to move on my mark. Cruz turned to his helm officer. Lieutenant Park, I need you to pull off a miracle. Get us between the Wanderer and that battleship. Park's hands tightened on the controls. Aye, sir. It'll be tight, but I'll make it work. The horizon surged forward, weaving through the debris field of destroyed sovereignty ships. Cruz watched the tactical display, his heart pounding as they closed in on their target. Now, Park! The Horizon slipped into position just as the Sovereignty battleship unleashed a devastating barrage. The human ship's shields flared brilliant blue, absorbing the brunt of the attack meant for the Wanderer. "Shields at 30% and dropping," Turunen reported, her voice tight with tension. Cruz gritted his teeth. "Divert all non-essential power to shields and weapons. Turunen, target that battleship's main reactor. Fire everything we've got." The Horizon's weapons blazed to life, a storm of energy and projectiles slamming into the Sovereignty vessel. For a moment, it seemed like it wouldn't be enough. Then, a lucky shot found its mark. A blinding explosion ripped through the battleship's hull, secondary detonations following in rapid succession. "Sovereignty battleship's reactor is going critical," Turunen shouted. "They're losing power across all systems." Cruz allowed himself a small smile before turning his attention back to the Wanderer. "Commander Durnak, this is your chance. Get your people out of here now." The massive refugee ship lumbered into motion, its engines straining as it limped away from the battle. The remaining Sovereignty ships, suddenly without leadership, fell into disarray. As the Horizon moved to cover the Wanderer's retreat, Cruz opened a channel to Earth. "Chancellor Duke, this is Captain Cruz. The situation here is..." He was cut off by a barrage of urgent transmissions flooding in from other Earth outposts and ships. Voices overlapped, each more frantic than the last. "This is the Mars defense perimeter. We're picking up multiple Sovereignty signatures on approach. Ganymede Station here. We've got refugee ships requesting emergency docking. They're being pursued by hostiles. Europa outpost reporting. Our long-range sensors are detecting a massive fleet heading for the Sol system. It's the Sovereignty, and they're out for blood." Cruz exchanged a grim look with Gyasi. What had started as a rescue mission had just become the opening salvo of a war that would determine the fate of humanity and the entire galaxy. As the realization of what they'd stepped into sank in, Cruz steeled himself for the challenges ahead. He'd made the choice to intervene, to stand up for what was right. Now he and every other human in the solar system would have to face the consequences of that decision. But as he looked at the grateful faces of the refugees on the Wanderer, as he thought of the lives they'd saved, Cruz knew he'd make the same choice again in a heartbeat. Whatever came next, humanity would face it head-on, with courage and determination. The next few hours would be crucial. Earth needed to be mobilized, defenses prepared, and allies gathered. And at the center of it all, Captain Lawrence Cruz and the crew of the Horizon would play a pivotal role in shaping the future of their species and the galaxy itself. As the Horizon escorted the Wanderer to safety, Cruz couldn't help but feel a mix of dread and exhilaration. The die had been cast. Humanity was about to take its place on the galactic stage, for better or worse. And he, Lawrence Cruz, had been the one to light the fuse. Chancellor Terence Duke paced the dimly lit Situation Room, the weight of humanity's future heavy on his shoulders. Screens flickered with incoming reports from across the solar system, each more dire than the last. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. "We're live in 30 seconds, sir," a young aide announced, her voice tight with tension. Duke nodded, straightening his tie. He'd never been one for grand speeches, but today, everything would change. As the red light on the camera blinked to life, he looked directly into the lens, his weathered face a mask of determination. "My fellow citizens of Earth," he began, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his chest. "I come to you today, not as your chancellor, but as a human being facing an unprecedented crisis. In the past few hours, our long-held policy of non-interference in galactic affairs has been shattered by an act of heroism that may well have altered the course of human history." The Chancellor's words rang out across the globe, from bustling metropolises to remote villages. In New York City, Times Square fell silent as his face appeared on the massive screens overhead. In a small cafe in Paris, patrons huddled around a holographic display, their expressions a mix of fear and fascination. Captain Lawrence Cruz of the Pluto outpost intercepted a distress call from a ship carrying innocent refugees, fleeing from the tyranny of a group known as the Sovereignty. Duke continued, his voice growing more impassioned. In the face of unspeakable atrocities, Captain Cruz made the decision to intervene, risking everything to save lives. In orbit above Mars, a team of terraforming engineers paused their work, gathered around a comm unit. One of them, Dr. Ley, Amelia Cortez, felt her throat tighten as she listened to the Chancellor's words. She thought of her own family, of the life she'd built on this red planet. What would this mean for them? Duke's expression hardened as he continued. The sovereignty, my fellow citizens, is not content with the suffering they've already caused. Even now, their forces are moving against us, threatening not just those we sought to protect, but our entire way of life. He paused, letting the gravity of his words sink in. In homes and public spaces across Earth and its colonies, millions held their breath, waiting for what would come next. I will not sugarcoat the situation, Duke said, his voice low and intense. We are facing an enemy of unimaginable cruelty and power. But I ask you now to look to the stars and remember who we are. We are humanity. We have faced extinction, conquered our own world, and reached out into the cosmos. We have never backed down from a fight when innocent lives were at stake. In a crowded apartment in Lagos, Nigeria, Oluwaseun Adebayo clutched her young daughter close. She had always dreamed of her child growing up to explore the stars. Now, as she listened to the Chancellor's words, she felt a fierce determination well up inside her. This was their moment to stand up for something greater than themselves. Chancellor Duke's voice rose, filling with passion. The sovereignty believes us to be weak, isolated, and unprepared. They are wrong. Today, we will show the galaxy the true strength of humanity. We will stand united against tyranny, against oppression, and against the darkness that threatens to engulf us all. As he spoke, something remarkable began to happen. Across every social media platform, on every communication channel, a tidal wave of support began to build. Hashtags like #HumanityUnited and Stand with Cruz trended globally in a matter of minutes. In orbit around Jupiter, at the Ganymede Research Station, Dr. Hiroshi Turunen watched in awe as his feed exploded with messages of solidarity. Colleagues he'd known for years, who had always advocated for isolation, were now calling for action. He felt a surge of pride in his species, in their capacity for empathy and courage in the face of overwhelming odds. Back on Earth, in a small town in the American Midwest, retired Marine Sergeant Sarah Collins listened to the Chancellor's words with growing resolve. She had hung up her uniform years ago, but as Duke spoke of the threat they faced, she felt the old fire rekindling in her chest. Without a second thought, she reached for her phone, ready to re-enlist. Duke's voice swelled with emotion as he reached the climax of his speech. I am hereby ordering the full mobilization of Earth's defenses. To every soldier, sailor, pilot, and citizen willing to stand up for what's right, your planet needs you. Your species needs you. The very future of galactic civilization may rest on what we do in the coming hours. As he spoke, the floodgates opened. Military recruitment centers across the globe were suddenly inundated with volunteers. In orbit, mothballed warships hummed to life as reserve crews scrambled to their stations. On Mars and Luna, defense grids that had lain dormant for decades began powering up. Their energy signatures a clear message to any who would threaten humanity. But even as we prepare for war, Duke continued, his tone softening slightly, we must remember what we're fighting for. We fight not for conquest or glory, but for the right of all sentient beings to live free from fear and oppression. We fight because to do any less would be to betray everything that makes us human. In the depths of the horizon, locked in fierce combat with sovereignty forces, Captain Cruz had no way of knowing the impact his actions had sparked back home. As energy beams lanced past the viewports and klaxons blared warnings of failing shields, he and his crew fought on, driven by the same sense of justice that had led them to intervene in the first place. Beside Cruz on the bridge stood Zarek and Lumi, the two alien refugees who had proven instrumental in the battle so far. Zarek, a towering insectoid with iridescent wings and compound eyes that seemed to take in everything at once, manned the tactical station with inhuman precision. His species' natural affinity for complex spatial relationships allowed him to predict enemy maneuvers seconds before they happened. Lumi, by contrast, was a small, almost ethereal being composed of swirling bioluminescent particles. Her form shifted constantly, adapting to the changing electromagnetic fields around her. At the science station, she processed vast amounts of sensor data, her unique perception allowing her to spot patterns and weaknesses that even the Horizon's advanced AI missed. "Incoming fire, portside!" Zarek's multitonal voice cut through the chaos on the bridge. "Evasive maneuvers recommended!" Crews didn't hesitate. "Helm, hard to starboard! Turunen, target their lead ship's propulsion systems!" The Horizon banked hard, narrowly avoiding a barrage of energy torpedoes. Lieutenant Commander Mira Turunen's fingers danced across her console, and a moment later, the Horizon's main cannon roared to life. A brilliant beam of concentrated energy lashed out, catching the Sovereignty cruiser mid-turn. Its engines sputtered and died, leaving it drifting helplessly. But for every small victory, the situation grew more desperate. The Horizon's shields were failing, and the Starlight Wanderer, still limping along behind them, was in even worse shape. "Captain," Lumi's voice was like chimes in the wind. "I'm detecting a buildup of tachyon particles in Sector Gamma 9. I believe the Sovereignty is attempting to cut off our escape route with a localized space-time distortion." Crews felt a chill run down his spine. If they lost their avenue of retreat, they'd be sitting ducks. He opened his mouth to order another series of evasive maneuvers when suddenly multiple new contacts appeared on the long-range sensors. For a heart-stopping moment, Crews feared it was Sovereignty reinforcements. But then a familiar voice crackled over the comm system, filled with unmistakable swagger. "This is Captain Alessandra Jansen of the UES Thunderchild. Looks like you could use a hand, Crews. Mind if we crash the party?" A whoop of joy went up from the Horizon's crew as a dozen Earth ships dropped out of warp, weapons blazing. The Thunderchild, a sleek destroyer twice the size of the Horizon, led the charge, its advanced point defense systems lighting up space with a dazzling display of coordinated fire. "Impeccable timing as always, Jansen," Crews replied, unable to keep the relief from his voice. "Think you can keep these bastards busy while we get the Wanderer to safety?" "Consider it done." Jansen's voice was hard as steel. "We've got some new tricks up our sleeves. Time to show the Sovereignty what happens when you piss off humanity." As if to punctuate her words, the Thunderchild unleashed a barrage of what looked like standard missiles. But as they neared the Sovereignty ships, they suddenly split apart, each warhead becoming a swarm of smaller, independently targeted projectiles. The Sovereignty's defenses, calibrated for larger threats, were overwhelmed in seconds. With the newly arrived Earth fleet engaging the bulk of the Sovereignty forces, Crews seized the opportunity. "All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for emergency warp jump. We're getting the Wanderer out of here." As the Horizon's crew scrambled to comply, Crews turned to Zarek and Lumi. "I hope you're both ready for a bumpy ride. We're about to push this ship to its limits." Zarek's mandibles clicked in what Crews had come to recognize as a gesture of excitement. "We trust you, Captain. Our lives are in your hands." Lumi's form pulsed with a soft, calming light. "Whatever happens, we face it together, as one crew, as friends." Crews felt a lump form in his throat at their words. In the span of a few short hours, these aliens had become more than allies. They were family. "Helm," he ordered, his voice thick with emotion. "Plot a course for Earth. Maximum warp. Let's show our new friends what home looks like." As the Horizon and the battered Wanderer vanished into the swirling vortex of warp space, the battle behind them raged on. Humanity had taken its first steps onto the galactic stage, and there would be no turning back. Back on Earth, the emergency session of the United Earth Council had devolved into barely controlled chaos. Representatives from every nation and off-world colony argued fiercely, their voices rising above the sound of incoming emergency broadcasts. Chancellor Duke stood at the center of the storm, his face a mask of determination. Ladies and gentlemen, I understand your concerns, but we are out of time. The sovereignty is at our doorstep, and we must act now. And do what exactly? The Chinese representative, a stern-faced woman named Lin Wei, demanded, "Throw our entire civilization into a war we know nothing about. We're not ready for this." With all due respect, Madam Representative, the holographic image of Admiral Thaddeus Rowland, commander of Earth's First Fleet, interjected, "Ready or not, this war has come to us. The question now is whether we face it on our terms or theirs." As the argument intensified, a junior aide burst into the chamber, her face pale. "Chancellor, we're receiving a priority transmission from the horizon. They've just dropped out of warp in Earth orbit, along with the refugee ship and—" "Sir, you need to see this for yourself." The main screen in the council chamber flickered to life, showing a view of Earth orbit that took everyone's breath away. The horizon and the massive starlight wanderer hung in space, backlit by the blue marble of Earth. But surrounding them, appearing in flashes of light as they dropped out of warp, was the largest assemblage of ships humanity had ever seen. Vessels of every conceivable shape and size filled the screen. Some were clearly warships, bristling with weapons. Others looked more like floating cities, their hulls adorned with the scars of long journeys. And at the center of it all, dwarfing even the largest human ships, was a vessel that seemed to defy the laws of physics, its surface rippling like liquid metal. Captain Crew's voice came over the speakers, tinged with awe. "Chancellor, Council members, I present to you the full might of the Galactic Council's refugee fleet. They've been running from the sovereignty for months, and now they're asking for our help, not just to save them, but to end this war once and for all." A new voice joined the transmission, deep and resonant. "I am High Counselor Genva of the Galactic Council. People of Earth, you stand at a crossroads. The choice you make today will echo across the stars for generations to come. Will you stand with us against the darkness, or will you hide behind your walls as the galaxy burns?" The council chamber fell silent. Every eye turned to Chancellor Duke. In that moment, the weight of history pressed down upon him. He thought of every human life that had led to this moment, of every dream of reaching the stars, of every story of heroes standing against impossible odds. With a deep breath, Duke stepped forward, his voice clear and unwavering. "High Counselor Genva, on behalf of humanity, I say this. We will fight. Not just for ourselves, but for every being in this galaxy who yearns to be free. The sovereignty believed us to be weak, isolated, and unprepared. Today we prove them wrong. Today humanity takes its place among the stars." As one, the members of the Earth Council rose to their feet, their earlier arguments forgotten in the face of this monumental decision. A cheer went up, echoing through the chamber and out across the planet. In orbit, aboard the horizon, Captain Cruz felt a surge of pride as he watched the reactions of Zarek and Lumi. The two aliens embraced, tears streaming down their faces as they realized that their long flight was finally over. They had found not just refuge, but allies willing to stand against the tide of darkness that had consumed their homes. As the Council's declaration of war against the sovereignty was broadcast across the solar system, humanity moved with a speed and unity that would have seemed impossible just hours before. Shipyards that had lain dormant for decades roared to life, crews working around the clock to reactivate mothballed warships and retrofit civilian vessels for combat. On Mars, the vast underground factories originally designed for terraforming equipment were quickly retooled to produce weapons and armor. Luna's extensive network of mass drivers, once used for launching raw materials to orbital construction sites, were hastily modified into a planetary defense grid capable of hurling projectiles at relativistic speeds. But perhaps most impressive was the response from Earth's scientific community. Labs around the world shifted focus overnight, pooling resources and knowledge to analyze the advanced technology of their new alien allies. Within hours, breakthroughs were being made in fields ranging from faster-than-light communication to energy weapon design. As the feverish preparations continued, Chancellor Duke found himself in a secure briefing room with the highest-ranking military and scientific advisors. The atmosphere was tense, but charged with a sense of purpose that bordered on electric. "Ladies and gentlemen," Duke began, his voice grave, "we have less than 24 hours before the main sovereignty fleet reaches our solar system. I need options, and I need them now." Admiral Rowland stepped forward, activating a holographic display of the solar system. "Chancellor, we're mobilizing everything we have, but the hard truth is that we're outnumbered and outgunned. Even with the Galactic Council refugees, a direct confrontation would be costly." Dr. Dalia Velarun, Earth's foremost expert on xenotechnology, cleared her throat. "There might be another way. We've been analyzing the data provided by Captain Cruz and our new allies. The sovereignty's technological advantage isn't as insurmountable as we first thought." The massive hangar bay of the lunar shipyards thrummed with frenetic energy as thousands of technicians and engineers swarmed over rows of dormant warships. These behemoths, relics of a bygone era of human conflict, were now being awakened for a battle beyond anything their creators had ever imagined. Captain Julia Connor, her weathered face etched with determination, strode down the line of vessels, barking orders into her comm unit. "I want the Artemis and the Orion prepped and ready in 2 hours. Divert all available power to their shield generators and weapon systems." As if in response to her commands, the ships began to stir. Lights flickered to life along their hulls, and the low hum of awakening reactors filled the air. In the control tower overlooking the bay, technicians worked feverishly, running diagnostics and uploading the latest tactical data gleaned from the Horizon's encounter with the Sovereignty. Amidst the organized chaos, Zarek and Lumi moved through the crowd, their alien forms drawing curious glances from the human crew. They had volunteered to assist in the briefings, sharing their knowledge of Sovereignty tactics and technology. In a hastily assembled briefing room, Zarek's multifaceted eyes scanned the faces of the human officers before him. "The Sovereignty's primary advantage lies in their quantum entanglement communication network," he explained, his mandibles clicking with each word. "It allows for instantaneous coordination across vast distances, making their fleet movements unpredictable and devastatingly effective." Lumi's form shimmered, projecting a holographic display of Sovereignty ship formations. "However," she added, her voice like chimes in the wind, "this reliance on quantum communications also presents a potential weakness. If we can disrupt their network even briefly, it could throw their entire fleet into disarray." The human officers exchanged glances, a mix of hope and skepticism on their faces. Commander Jackson, a grizzled veteran of the Mars Rebellion, leaned forward. "And how exactly do you propose we do that? We barely understand our own quantum tech, let alone theirs." Before either alien could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Admiral Rowland's voice crackled over the intercom. "All personnel, prepare for immediate deployment. Sovereignty scout ships have been detected at the edge of the solar system. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." The briefing room erupted into controlled chaos as officers rushed to their stations. Captain Connor's voice cut through the din. "You heard the Admiral. To your ships, people. We'll figure out the details en route. Move." As the newly awakened Earth fleet prepared to depart, tensions ran high in the diplomatic chambers of the United Earth Government. Chancellor Duke stood before a holographic projection of the Galactic Council, his posture rigid with resolve. "Honorable members of the Council," Duke began, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "Humanity stands ready to join your fight against the Sovereignty, but we need to know everything you can tell us about their capabilities, their weaknesses, and their ultimate goals." High Counselor Genva, a towering figure of swirling energy contained within a crystalline exoskeleton, leaned forward. "Chancellor, we appreciate your willingness to stand with us, but you must understand the gravity of what you're entering into. The Sovereignty isn't merely a rebellious faction. They are the vanguard of something far more sinister. Images flickered across the holographic display, showing scenes of devastation across dozens of worlds. Entire cities reduced to ash, populations enslaved or worse. Duke felt his stomach churn at the sight, but he forced himself to watch, to bear witness to the horror they were about to face. They call themselves the Harbingers of Cosmic Order, Genva continued, his voice heavy with dread. They believe that the only path to galactic peace is through absolute control. Any species that refuses to submit is deemed a threat to their twisted vision of harmony. Another council member, a being that seemed to be composed entirely of interconnected data streams, spoke up. Our intelligence suggests that they've made alliances with entities from beyond the galactic rim. Dark matter manipulators, gravity well architects, beings with technologies that defy our understanding of physics. Duke absorbed the information, his mind racing. Then we'll need to pool our resources, combine our strengths. Humanity may be new to this conflict, but we have a long history of facing seemingly insurmountable odds. We've developed technologies and strategies that might just give us an edge. As the negotiations continued, the Earth fleet assembled in high orbit. Hundreds of ships, from nimble frigates to massive dreadnoughts, formed up in a defensive formation around the planet. At the heart of the fleet, aboard the flagship Excalibur, Admiral Roland oversaw final preparations for the quantum jump. "All ships, report in," Roland commanded, his voice echoing across the fleet-wide comm channel. One by one, the captains of Earth's warships sounded off, each voice a testament to humanity's resolve. In the Excalibur's engine room, Chief Engineer Philip Drexler stood before the pulsing heart of the quantum drive, a marvel of human ingenuity and alien collaboration. The device, a fusion of Earth's most advanced technology and insights gleaned from their new allies, hummed with barely contained power. "Admiral," Drexler's voice crackled over the intercom, "the quantum drive is primed and ready. But I must warn you, sir, we've never attempted a jump of this magnitude before. The stress on the ships and crew will be significant." Roland's reply was grim, but determined. "Understood, Chief. But we don't have the luxury of caution. The fate of Earth, hell, the entire galaxy, rests on this jump. Prepare for activation on my mark." As the countdown began, a palpable tension settled over the fleet. In the medical bay of the Horizon, now integrated into the main fleet, Dr. Angela Maroon prepared her team for the unknown physiological effects of the jump. "Remember your training," she advised, her voice calm despite her own apprehension. "We don't know exactly what to expect, but we've prepared for every scenario we could think of." On the bridge, Captain Cruz stood alongside Zarek and Lumi, the unlikely trio having formed a bond forged in the heat of battle. "Whatever happens," Cruz said, his voice low, "I'm glad you're both here. Your courage brought us into this fight, and together, we'll see it through." Zarek's compound eyes shimmered with an emotion Cruz couldn't quite identify. "In all my cycles, I never imagined standing shoulder to shoulder with humans in battle. Yet here we are, at the precipice of history." Lumi's form pulsed with a soft, reassuring light. "The sovereignty believes they have seen all that the universe has to offer. They are about to learn how wrong they are." Admiral Roland's voice cut through the moment of reflection. "All ships, this is it. Quantum jump in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engage." In an instant, reality itself seemed to twist and bend. The stars stretched into impossibly long lines of light, and for a brief, terrifying moment, every member of the fleet felt as if they were being pulled apart at the atomic level. Then, with a flash that momentarily outshone the sun, the entire Earth fleet vanished from the solar system. The journey lasted both an eternity and no time at all. When the fleet re-emerged, it was to a scene of utter chaos. They found themselves in the midst of a massive battle, laser fire and explosions lighting up the void of space like a deadly fireworks display. "Status report!" Roland demanded, shaking off the disorientation from the jump. "Sir, we've arrived at the coordinates provided by the Galactic Council," his tactical officer responded, her voice tight with tension. but it appears we've jumped right into the middle of an ongoing engagement between Council forces and the Sovereignty fleet. Before them stretched a battlefield, unlike anything humanity had ever witnessed. Massive Sovereignty dreadnoughts, their hulls adorned with pulsing lines of dark energy, unleashed barrages of weaponry that defied the laws of physics. Beams of concentrated gravity tore Council ships apart, while swarms of self-replicating nanite missiles sought out and consumed anything in their path. The Council fleet, while impressive in its own right, was clearly on the defensive. Their ships, a dizzying array of designs reflecting the diversity of the galactic community, fought with desperate valor against the overwhelming force of the Sovereignty. For a moment, both sides of the conflict seemed too shocked by the sudden appearance of the human fleet to react. Then, a transmission cut through the chaos, originating from the largest of the Council vessels. "Unknown fleet, identify yourselves immediately." The voice was authoritative but tinged with desperation. Admiral Roland straightened his uniform and activated the holographic projector. "This is Admiral Thaddeus Roland of the United Earth Defense Fleet. We're here to render assistance as per our agreement with the Galactic Council. What's the situation?" The alien commander's image flickered into view, revealing a being that seemed to be composed of living crystal. Its faceted eyes widened in what might have been surprise. "Humans? Here? We had no idea you were capable of quantum jumping on this scale. The Council said reinforcements were coming, but we expected, never mind. We need your help, desperately. The Sovereignty fleet outguns us 3-1, and they've brought weapons we've never seen before." Roland nodded grimly. "Understood. We may be new to this fight, but we're quick learners. What do you need us to do?" As the alien commander began to outline the situation, the Sovereignty forces seemed to shake off their surprise. A massive battleship, easily twice the size of the Excalibur, turned its attention to the human fleet. Dark energy crackled along its hull as it prepared to fire. "Evasive maneuvers!" Roland shouted. "All ships, break formation and engage at will. Show these bastards what humanity can do." The Earth fleet exploded into action, ships peeling off in every direction with a coordination that seemed to surprise even their allies. The Excalibur itself dove straight towards the Sovereignty battleship, its newly upgraded shields flaring as they absorbed the enemy's first salvo. Aboard the Horizon, Captain Cruz gripped his command chair as the ship corkscrewed through a hail of enemy fire. "Tactical. Analyze their weapon systems. Find me a weakness." Lieutenant Commander Turunen's fingers flew across her console. "Sir, their energy signatures are off the charts, but there's something odd. Their weapons seem to be drawing power directly from subspace. If we could disrupt that connection—" "Do it," Cruz ordered. "Coordinate with the rest of the fleet. Let's show them what happens when you underestimate humanity." As the battle raged, it quickly became apparent that while the Sovereignty held a significant technological advantage, they had never faced an opponent quite like humanity. Earth ships darted between lumbering Sovereignty dreadnoughts, their more conventional weapons proving surprisingly effective against shields designed to repel exotic energy attacks. On the bridge of the Thunderchild, Captain Jansen watched in awe as a squad of human fighters executed a maneuver that should have been impossible, diving through a gravity well to deliver a payload directly to the weak point of a Sovereignty cruiser. The resulting explosion took out 3 enemy ships in a chain reaction. "Holy shit," Jansen breathed. "Did you see that? How did they even calculate that trajectory?" Her tactical officer, a young ensign fresh out of the academy, grinned fiercely. "They didn't, sir. That was pure human insanity. The kind of move no sane species would ever attempt, which is exactly why it worked." As the initial shock of the human arrival wore off, the tide of battle began to turn. Council ships, reinvigorated by the unexpected reinforcements, pressed their attacks with renewed vigor. The Sovereignty forces, for the first time in the long and bloody war, found themselves on the defensive. But the harbingers of cosmic order had not come this far to be defeated so easily. From the heart of their fleet, a new vessel emerged. Unlike the dark, angular designs of their other ships, this one pulsed with an otherworldly light. Its form seemed to shift and change, as if it wasn't fully anchored in reality. All ships, be advised. High Counselor Genva's voice crackled across the comm channels, an edge of fear evident even through the static. The Sovereignty is deploying their super weapon. We've lost entire systems to that monstrosity. Whatever you do, do not let it fire. As if in response to the warning, the strange ship began to glow brighter. Space itself seemed to warp around it, stars visible through the battlefield distorting, as if seen through a twisted lens. Admiral Rowland's voice cut through the growing panic. This is Admiral Rowland to all Earth ships. That thing, whatever it is our primary target. Throw everything we've got at it, and someone get me a direct line to Captain Cruz. I think it's time we tested that crazy plan of his. As the combined forces of Earth and the Galactic Council converged on the Sovereignty superweapon, the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The next few moments would determine whether the light of freedom would prevail, or if the long night of tyranny would descend upon all sentient beings. The holographic war room aboard the UES Excalibur crackled with tension as Captain Cruz materialized alongside the other human captains and alien allies. Admiral Rowland's weathered face dominated the central display, his eyes sharp with determination. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored allies," Rowland began, his voice cutting through the nervous chatter. "We've bloodied the Sovereignty's nose, but they're far from beaten. We need a game changer, and we need it now." Cruz stepped forward, his uniform still singed from the recent battle. "Sir, I believe we've identified a critical weakness in the enemy's defenses. Lumi, if you would." The bioluminescent alien shimmered into view, her form coalescing into a 3D representation of the Sovereignty's fleet formations. "The Sovereignty's quantum entanglement network is the key to their coordination," she explained, her voice like wind chimes in a storm. "But it's also their Achilles heel." Captain Jansen of the Thunderchild leaned in, her eyes narrowing. "How so?" "That network's what's making them nearly impossible to outmaneuver." Zarek's mandibles clicked excitedly as he joined the explanation. "It's a closed system, designed to be impenetrable, but in making it secure, they've made it inflexible. If we can inject a cascading quantum error into just one node, we could bring down their entire command and control structure," Cruz finished, a fierce grin spreading across his face. The room erupted into a flurry of suggestions and counter-arguments. Captain Mira Turunen of the Hiryu raised her voice above the din. "It's a solid theory, but how do we get close enough to implement it? Their defensive screen is impenetrable." Cruz's grin turned wolfish. "That's where things get interesting. We don't penetrate their defenses. We make them invite us in." Over the next hour, a plan took shape that was equal parts brilliance and insanity. It relied on human unpredictability, alien insight, and a level of coordination that would push both technology and flesh to their limits. Admiral Rowland listened intently, his expression unreadable. When the final details were hammered out, he nodded slowly. "It's audacious, borderline suicidal, and exactly the kind of thing the Sovereignty won't see coming. Well done, all of you. You have my authorization to proceed. May whatever gods you believe in watch over us all." As the command staff dispersed to their stations, Cruz found himself alone with Zarek and Lumi. The insectoid alien's compound eyes shimmered with an emotion Cruz had learned to recognize as concern. "Captain, the role you've assigned yourself in this plan, the odds of survival are irrelevant." Cruz cut him off, his voice gentle but firm. "This is our shot to end this war and save countless lives. Whatever it costs, it's worth it." Lumi's form pulsed with a soft, comforting light. "Then we stand with you, Lawrence Cruz. To whatever end." The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity as the combined human and galactic council fleet prepared for the most daring operation in the history of interstellar warfare. In the bowels of the Excalibur, a team of human engineers worked feverishly alongside alien technicians, integrating Lumi's unique abilities into a hastily constructed quantum disruptor. Dr. Dalia Vilarun, Earth's foremost expert on xenotechnology, wiped sweat from her brow as she made the final adjustments. "This goes against every safety protocol in the book," she muttered, her hands steady despite her words. "If the calibration is off by even a fraction of a picosecond, then we all cease to exist at a quantum level," finished her alien counterpart, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline exoskeleton. A fitting end, perhaps, given the stakes. Velarun couldn't help but laugh at the alien's dry humor. "Well, when you put it that way, how can we lose?" Meanwhile, on the bridge of the horizon, Cruz oversaw the final preparations for his part of the plan. The ship had been stripped down to its bare essentials, every non-critical system rerouted to boost its stealth capabilities. It would be flying dark, relying on split-second timing and a whole lot of luck to pull off its crucial role. "Reactor at minimal output, sir," reported Lieutenant Commander Turunen, her voice tense. "We're as close to invisible as we're going to get." Cruz nodded, his eyes fixed on the tactical display showing the looming bulk of the Sovereignty's flagship. "Good. Now we wait for the fireworks to start." Across the fleet, similar scenes played out as each ship and crew prepared for their assigned tasks. The plan relied on a complex series of feints and diversions, each one designed to draw the Sovereignty's attention away from the true thrust of the attack. At precisely 1842 Earth Standard Time, Admiral Rowland's voice crackled across the secure channel. "All units, Operation Trojan Horse is a go. May fortune favor the bold." The battle erupted with a ferocity that stunned even the veteran Galactic Council commanders. Human ships executed maneuvers that seemed to defy the laws of physics, darting between the lumbering Sovereignty dreadnoughts with a reckless grace that left their enemies reeling. Captain Jansen's voice cut through the chaos of the command channel. "Thunderchild, engaging primary target. Payback's a bitch, you cosmic fascists." The Thunderchild's main cannon flared to life, unleashing a beam of concentrated energy that punched through the shields of a Sovereignty battlecruiser like they weren't even there. As the enemy vessel began to break apart, Jansen's tactical officer shouted in triumph, "Direct hit on their primary power core! She's going supernova!" The resulting explosion created a momentary hole in the Sovereignty's defensive line, one that the combined fleet was quick to exploit. Galactic Council ships poured through the gap, their weapons blazing as they finally found themselves on the offensive after months of desperate retreat. But the Sovereignty was far from beaten. From the heart of their formation, a massive vessel unlike anything seen before emerged. Its hull seemed to bend light around it, making it difficult to focus on directly. Tendrils of dark energy writhed along its surface, reaching out to ensnare any ship that came too close. "By the cosmic core," breathed High Counselor Genva, his crystalline form trembling. "They've completed it. The nullifier." Cruz's voice was sharp with urgency. "Talk to me, Counselor. What are we dealing with?" "A weapon of unimaginable power," Genva replied, his usual composure shaken. "Capable of unraveling the very fabric of space-time. If they bring it fully online, this entire sector of the galaxy will cease to exist." For a moment, the comms were filled with stunned silence. Then, Cruz's voice rang out, filled with a determination that sent chills down the spines of all who heard it. "Like hell it will. Horizon actual to all ships. Initiate Phase 2. I say again, Phase 2 is a go." What followed was a display of coordinated warfare unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships began to move in intricate patterns, weaving between friend and foe alike. To the Sovereignty, it appeared chaotic, even desperate. But there was a method to the madness. Each maneuver, each seemingly random burst of weapons fire, was precisely calculated to herd the Sovereignty fleet into a specific formation, and at the heart of it all, undetected and running dark, was the horizon. Cruz stood at the helm, his hands steady on the controls as he guided his ship through a maelstrom of battle. Beside him, Zarek and Lumi worked in perfect synchronization, their alien senses allowing them to perceive gaps in the enemy's defenses that no human could have spotted. "We're approaching the target zone," Zarek announced, his mandibles clicking rapidly. 30 seconds to optimal position." Cruz nodded, his voice low and intense. "Lumi, status on the quantum disruptor?" The bioluminescent alien's form pulsed with nervous energy. "Primed and ready, Captain. But I must warn you, the moment we activate it, we'll be fully exposed. The sovereignty will throw everything they have at us." "Then we'd better make it count," Cruz replied, a grim smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "All hands, brace for impact. This is going to get bumpy." As the horizon slipped into position, practically in the shadow of the nullifier, the rest of the fleet executed the final stage of the plan. In perfect synchronization, every human and Galactic Council ship unleashed a barrage of weapons fire, creating a dazzling light show that momentarily blinded the sovereignty's sensors. In that crucial moment of distraction, Cruz gave the order. "Now, Lumi, hit them with everything we've got." The quantum disruptor roared to life, its energy signature quickly overwhelming the horizon's stealth systems. A beam of pure chaos lanced out, striking the nullifier at its most vulnerable point. For a heartbeat, nothing seemed to happen. Then, like a house of cards caught in a hurricane, the sovereignty's impenetrable quantum network began to collapse. Ship after ship suddenly found itself cut off from central command, their crews thrown into confusion as contradictory orders flooded their comms. The mighty nullifier, denied the precise calculations needed to contain its awesome power, began to tear itself apart. But the sovereignty wasn't going down without a fight. As the horizon's location was revealed, every nearby enemy ship turned its weapons on the suddenly vulnerable vessel. The ship's shields buckled under the onslaught, alarms blaring as systems began to fail. "Hull breach on Deck 3, shouted Lieutenant Commander Turinen, her hands flying over her console. "We can't take much more of this, Captain." Cruz gritted his teeth, fighting to keep the ship steady as another blast rocked them. "We hold position. The disruptor needs more time to complete the cascade." Zarek's multifaceted eyes widened in alarm. "Captain, I'm detecting a massive energy buildup from the nullifier. I believe they're attempting a final, desperate attack." As if to confirm his words, the space around the massive sovereignty weapon began to warp and twist. Reality itself seemed to be fraying at the edges, the very stars distorting as the nullifier prepared to unleash its reality-ending power. Lumi's voice was strained, her form flickering as she channeled every ounce of her energy into the quantum disruptor. "The cascade is at 95%. 96%. We're almost there." Cruz watched as the nullifier's distortion field grew, threatening to engulf not just the horizon, but the entire human fleet. In that moment, he made a decision that would be remembered for generations to come. "All power to the disruptor," he ordered, his voice ringing with finality. "Divert everything, life support, engines, everything." "But sir," Turinen protested, "that'll leave us completely defenseless." Cruz met her gaze, his eyes blazing with determination. "Sometimes, Lieutenant, you have to roll the hard 6. Do it." As the last of the horizon's power was channeled into the quantum disruptor, the ship went dark, drifting helplessly in space. The nullifier's field reached out, tendrils of unreality brushing against the hull. For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Then, with a silent flash that seemed to ripple across the very fabric of space-time, the quantum cascade reached critical mass. The nullifier's field collapsed in on itself, taking the mighty weapon with it. A shockwave of pure quantum energy radiated outward, washing over the sovereignty fleet. Ships began to disappear, not destroyed, but simply ceasing to exist as the cascade rewrote reality around them. Those that remained found themselves adrift, their systems completely fried by the quantum pulse. As the dust settled, the comms crackled to life with cheers and cries of disbelief from across the human and Galactic Council fleet. They had done it. Against all odds, they had snatched victory from the jaws of defeat. But aboard the horizon, all was silent. The ship floated motionless, its hull scarred and blackened, showing no signs of life. As rescue ships raced to the scene, the galaxy held its breath, wondering at the fate of the brave crew who had sacrificed everything to save them all. The story of the Battle of the Nullifier would be told and retold countless times in the years to come. But in that moment, as the stars themselves seemed to shine a little brighter, one thing was clear. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and nothing would ever be the same again. The quantum cascade rippled through space-time, a silent shockwave that rewrote the very fabric of reality. In its wake, the once mighty Sovereignty fleet lay in ruins, their vaunted technology rendered useless by human ingenuity and alien cooperation. The Nullifier, that reality-ending abomination, imploded with a flash that seared itself into the retinas of every being for light years around. As the blinding light faded, a stunned silence fell across the battlefield. Then, from the comms of every Allied ship, a single voice crackled through. Admiral Rowland, his tone a mixture of disbelief and fierce pride. "All units, status report. Did we just win?" The silence shattered as cheers erupted across the human and galactic council fleets. Ships that moments ago had been locked in mortal combat now drifted side by side, their crews united in a shared sense of awe at what they had just witnessed. But amidst the celebrations, a cold dread settled in the pit of Captain Jansen's stomach as she stared at the last known coordinates of the horizon. "Admiral," she called out, her voice tight with concern, "I'm not picking up any life signs from Captain Crew's ship." The jubilation died as quickly as it had begun. Rescue ships from both human and alien fleets converged on the horizon's position, their sensors straining to penetrate the quantum interference still lingering in the area. As the galaxy held its breath, a faint signal pierced through the static. "This is Captain Cruz of the Horizon," came the weak transmission. "We're still here. Barely." The collective sigh of relief was almost palpable. Rescue teams swarmed the battered hull of the Horizon, extracting the surviving crew members. Cruz himself was found in the shattered remains of the bridge, his body battered, but his spirit unbroken. As medics rushed to stabilize him, he locked eyes with Zarek and Lumi, a weary smile crossing his face. "Did we get them?" Lumi's form pulsed with joy as she replied, "We did, Captain. The Sovereignty's main fleet is in disarray. Their defenses are collapsing across all fronts." But even as the Allied forces began to press their advantage, the Sovereignty proved that it still had teeth. From the heart of their territory, a massive space station, their central command hub, unleashed a barrage of weaponry that made the previous battles seem like mere skirmishes. Admiral Rowland's voice cut through the chaos. "All ships, form up. They're making their last stand. Let's end this, here and now." The combined fleet surged forward, human ingenuity melding seamlessly with alien technology. Fighters darted between capital ships, their pilots executing maneuvers that defied belief. On the bridge of the Excalibur, Rowland watched with a mixture of pride and awe as humanity proved its worth on the galactic stage. As they closed in on the Sovereignty's stronghold, resistance stiffened. Swarms of autonomous drones filled space, sacrificing themselves in kamikaze runs against the Allied ships. Energy weapons of incomprehensible power lashed out, vaporizing entire squadrons in heartbeats. But for every loss, the human-led alliance adapted. AI-driven point defense systems learned and evolved in real time, predicting and neutralizing threats with uncanny accuracy. Galactic Council ships, emboldened by human audacity, pushed themselves beyond their usual limits. In the midst of the furious battle, a transmission cut through the chaos, a direct communication from the leader of the Sovereignty. The being that appeared on the view screens was unlike anything most humans had ever seen, a writhing mass of tentacles and eyes, each movement seeming to bend the light around it unnaturally. Insignificant vermin. The creature's thoughts boomed directly into the minds of all who could hear. "You dare to challenge the inevitable. We are the harbingers of order, the end of chaos. Your resistance is not only futile, it is an affront to the very concept of existence. Admiral Roland stood tall, his voice firm as he responded. "We've heard your kind of rhetoric before, on our own world. Tyrants who think their vision of order justifies any atrocity. But let me tell you something about humanity. We've been kicking the ass of would-be gods since before we left our cradle." The sovereignty leader's form writhed in what might have been anger or amusement. "You are but children, playing with forces beyond your comprehension. Witness now the true power of cosmic order." The space station began to transform, its structure twisting and reshaping into something that hurt the eyes to look upon directly. Reality itself seemed to warp around it, stars blinking out of existence as they were consumed by the growing anomaly. "By all that's holy," breathed High Counselor Genva, his crystalline form trembling. "They're creating a localized pocket universe, a realm where they define the very laws of physics." For a moment, despair threatened to overwhelm the Allied forces. How could they fight an enemy that could rewrite reality itself? But then, from the medical bay of the Excalibur, Captain Crew's voice rang out, weak but determined. "Admiral," he said, his words carrying the weight of revelation, "I think I know how we can beat this. The quantum disruptor, if we can amplify its effect, we might be able to collapse their pocket universe before it fully forms." What followed was a desperate race against time. As the Sovereignty's reality-warping field expanded, threatening to engulf the entire fleet, human scientists worked feverishly alongside alien engineers. They cannibalized systems from a dozen different species, jury-rigging a device that, by all rights, should never have worked. With seconds to spare, the makeshift quantum resonator was brought online. Its activation sent a ripple through space-time, a counter-melody to the Sovereignty's discord. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed as if the universe itself held its breath. Then, with a silent flash that seemed to momentarily extinguish every star in the sky, the Sovereignty's pocket universe collapsed in on itself. The massive space station twisted grotesquely, crushed by forces beyond mortal comprehension. In the span of a heartbeat, the seemingly invincible stronghold of cosmic tyrants was reduced to scattered atoms. As the blinding light faded, a stunned silence fell over the battlefield. Then, tentatively at first, but with growing volume, cheers began to erupt across the Allied fleet. They had done it. Against all odds, facing an enemy with technology bordering on the divine, humanity and its allies had emerged victorious. The following hours were a blur of activity. Sovereignty forces across the galaxy, suddenly cut off from their leadership and their reality-bending technology, began to surrender en masse. Those that resisted found themselves quickly overwhelmed by the reinvigorated Galactic Council forces, now bolstered by human allies. As the dust settled and the true scale of their victory became apparent, Chancellor Terence Duke prepared to address not just humanity, but the entire galactic community. His holographic form materialized in the chambers of the Galactic Council, as well as on screens and neural interfaces across countless worlds. Citizens of Earth, honored members of the Galactic Council, sentient beings of all species, Duke began, his voice carrying the weight of history. Today marks a turning point, not just in human history, but in the history of our galaxy. 24 hours ago, humanity was an isolated species, taking its first tentative steps onto the cosmic stage. Now, we stand shoulder to shoulder with allies from across the stars, having faced down a threat that seemed insurmountable. He paused, allowing the magnitude of the moment to sink in. But let us be clear, this victory does not belong to humanity alone. It was achieved through cooperation, through the melding of technologies and strategies from a dozen different species. It proves what we've always believed, that diversity is not a weakness, but our greatest strength. As Duke continued his speech, touching on the sacrifices made and the challenges that lay ahead in rebuilding, reactions poured in from across the galaxy. On countless worlds, beings of all descriptions watched in awe, trying to comprehend how this upstart species had accomplished in a day what the combined might of the Galactic Council had failed to do in years. In the medical bay of the Excalibur, Captain Cruz watched the address alongside Zarek and Lumi, his body battered, but his spirit unbroken. "You know," he mused, wincing slightly as he shifted in his bed, "when I intercepted that distress call near Pluto, I never imagined it would lead to this." Zarek's mandibles clicked in what Cruz had learned to recognize as laughter. "I don't think anyone could have imagined this, my friend. You humans have a saying, don't you? Go big or go home." Lumi's form shimmered with amusement. "I believe in this case they did both. They went big, and in doing so, they found a new home among the stars." As the speech concluded and the galaxy began to grapple with its new reality, Admiral Roland entered the medical bay. His uniform was scorched and his face weary, but his eyes shone with pride as he looked at Cruz and his alien friends. "Well, Captain," Roland said, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth, "it seems you've managed to rewrite not just the book on interstellar warfare, but humanity's place in the galaxy. The Galactic Council is already talking about offering Earth a seat. Not bad for a day's work." Cruz chuckled, then winced at the pain it caused. "Just doing my job, Admiral. Though I think I might take a few days off before the next galactic crisis, if that's all right with you." As laughter filled the room, a sense of possibility seemed to radiate outward, touching every corner of the galaxy. Humanity had arrived on the cosmic stage not as conquerors or saviors, but as partners. The stars, once distant and unreachable, now seemed like beacons of hope and adventure. In the span of a single Earth day, the course of galactic history had been irrevocably altered. And as news of the victory spread to every corner of known space, one phrase began to be whispered with a mixture of awe and excitement on countless alien worlds. "The humans are coming." Hey there again. I'm glad you've come so far. Hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to hit the like button and the subscribe button. This is really important to the channel. Really important. And I have one more thing for you. I've chosen another video for you to watch. Just click the card here, or here if you want the whole playlist. See you there.